Welcome to Reddit Revenge Stories. Did you know over 90% of people watch these videos but don't subscribe? If you enjoy stories of justice and payback, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to like the video if you're ready for today's story. Let's get to the story. I always believed that loyalty was the foundation of any relationship. When I married Alina, I thought we were building our lives on that very principle. She was my best friend, my confidant, the woman I believed was my soulmate. For years, I worked hard to build a stable life for us. I didn't come from much, and I didn't inherit any fortune or business. Everything I earned was through sheer determination and countless sacrifices. I run a modest logistics company. It's not glamorous, but it pays well enough. Some months are better than others, but I never let Alina feel the weight of our financial struggles. I always made sure she had what she needed: clothes, salon appointments, vacations with her friends. I believed if I kept her happy, she'd never have a reason to look elsewhere. I was wrong. Looking back now, there were signs. I just didn't want to see them. She had become increasingly attached to her phone. There were times she'd smile at her screen, then quickly lock it when I entered the room. I remember one evening when we were watching a movie. Her phone buzzed, and she smiled so warmly it caught my attention. I asked who it was. She casually said it was Zara, her friend from college. I didn't question it. I trusted her. We had been married for 6 years. In our 7th year, something shifted. She started picking fights over the smallest things: my schedule, my clothes, even the way I chewed. At first, I thought she was just stressed. Maybe she was going through something she didn't want to share. So I tried harder. I reduced my work hours. I came home early. I even surprised her with a weekend getaway. She seemed pleased but distant. That distance grew over time. One afternoon, while I was working in my home office, I heard her speaking in the backyard. She didn't know I was home. I walked to the window and saw her pacing, phone pressed to her ear. She laughed, a laugh I hadn't heard in months. She said something like, "You always know how to make me feel better." That sentence lodged itself in my brain. She never said that to me anymore. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe it was one of her friends. Maybe I was being paranoid. But something inside me refused to rest. That night, while she was asleep, I checked her phone. I hated doing it. I felt like a criminal. But what I found shook me to the core. There was no contact saved under the name Zara. But there were messages from a number with no name. Scrolling through them felt like walking barefoot on broken glass. Sweet nothings. Good morning texts. Late night voice notes. He called her babe. She called him my escape. My hands trembled. My throat tightened. I felt betrayed in a way I never thought possible. My Alina, the woman I cooked for, worked for, built a life with, was living a double life. I didn't sleep that night. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling, every word she had written to him echoing in my head. The next morning, I acted normal. I made breakfast. I kissed her goodbye. I even sent her a text from the office, telling her I loved her. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Not yet. I spent the next few days gathering information. I didn't confront her. Instead, I started building my revenge. Not the kind that would land me in prison or destroy lives, but the kind that would make her feel every ounce of pain she had caused me. I hired a private investigator. His name was Kamran, discreet and professional. Within a week, he had a file ready for me. Photos, hotel bookings, restaurant bills, even a weekend trip she had taken under the pretense of visiting her cousin in Lahore. Turns out she was with him. His name was Bilal, a gym trainer, young, charming, broke. I found out everything: his Instagram, his TikTok, even the old YouTube videos he had tried to make when he thought he'd become a fitness influencer. He lived in a rented apartment, no car, no stable job. But apparently, he had enough charm to steal my wife. That's when I decided I wouldn't explode. I wouldn't shout or beg. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me broken. I would be calm, calculated, cold. I started with small things. I made sure to remove her name from our joint accounts. Quietly, I consulted my lawyer and made arrangements to protect my business assets. I removed her access to our company benefits, all done legally, all done quietly. Then I changed the locks on my office. I even installed a few cameras around the house, not because I didn't trust her anymore, but because I wanted proof. I wanted her to feel the net closing in. One evening, she came home unusually late. Her excuse was traffic and some shopping detours. I smiled. I had already seen the photos from Kamran showing her entering Bilal's building earlier that afternoon. She sat across from me at dinner, lying to my face. I looked into her eyes and saw no guilt. That hurt more than anything else. I waited another week before making my next move. I organized a small dinner at our house and invited a few close friends, including her parents. She was surprised but played along. Midway through dinner, I stood up and tapped my glass. I told everyone I had something important to share. I looked at Alina. Her smile faltered. I announced that I would be filing for divorce. The silence in the room was deafening. Her parents looked confused. She dropped her spoon. "Why?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. I pulled out the printed photos. Her face went pale. "Because loyalty still means something to me," I said, "and clearly it doesn't to you." Her father looked at the photos and shook his head. Her mother started crying. Alina tried to say something, but I stopped her. "This isn't a debate," I said. "It's a declaration." The dinner ended abruptly. She followed me to the bedroom, crying, apologizing, saying it was a mistake. I listened. I didn't argue. I just told her she had 1 week to move out. The night she left, the house fell into a silence I hadn't heard in years. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that follows a storm, where everything lies broken, waiting to be picked up or left behind. Alina didn't argue when I reminded her of the deadline. She packed up quietly, though I knew the guilt was starting to eat at her. The dramatic sobbing, the calls to my phone, the endless voice notes. I didn't reply to a single one. I wasn't interested in her words anymore. I had heard enough lies. When she finally moved out, she went to stay at her sister's for a while. That's what her sister told me when she called, pleading on Alina's behalf. She asked me if there was any chance of reconciliation. I asked her one simple question. Would you forgive your husband if he lived a secret life behind your back for months? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. But I wasn't finished yet. I never intended to just let it go with a divorce. That would have been the easy way out for her. A few tears, a settlement, maybe some social media pity, and life would go on for her. No, I wanted her to feel the same emotional devastation I had felt. Not through anger, not through violence, but through strategy, through consequences. I began with Bilal. From the investigation, I knew he worked as a trainer at a local gym. He had no idea I knew who he was. I used a fake name and signed up for a personal training session with him. He was everything I expected. Overconfident, superficial, fake smiles for clients, hungry for praise and tips. During one session, I casually asked him about relationships. He laughed and said, "Man, women love guys who give them attention, especially the married ones. Their husbands are always too busy to notice." I wanted to punch him right there, but I didn't. I smiled. I asked for his number, said I wanted to bring some of my friends in for training. He didn't hesitate. After that, I created a fake client under a different name and messaged the gym owner anonymously. I provided screenshots of his messages with Alina, photos of them entering hotels and apartments together, all of it with dates and times. I made sure to mention how inappropriate it was for a trainer to be involved with married clients and how bad that would look for business. Bilal was fired within 3 days. Of course, he didn't know I was behind it. He posted on social media about toxic people trying to ruin his life. I watched silently as he tried to get support from his followers. But pity doesn't pay rent, and fake muscles can't build trust. I moved on to the next step. Alina had taken a few freelance marketing projects through my business contacts over the years. She had built a small portfolio using the clients I had introduced her to. I reached out to every one of them and informed them, politely, professionally, that my company would no longer recommend her services due to personal and ethical conflicts. It didn't take long before those referrals dried up. She wasn't talented enough to stand out without a strong network. And in that world, trust is everything. I knew she had a savings account, but not a large one. The money would last a few months, maybe. After that, reality would hit. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding myself. Not just financially, I was already safe there, but emotionally. I reconnected with old friends. I traveled. I started mentoring younger entrepreneurs and hosting small business workshops. Keeping myself busy helped silence the pain. But even during my healing, I kept an eye on her from a distance. Not because I missed her, but because I wanted to make sure the consequences stayed in motion. It was about 2 months after the divorce was filed that she finally reached out again. Not with apologies, not with explanations, but with anger. "You ruined my life," she texted. "No, I didn't." She did. All I did was uncover the truth and remove the safety net she thought would always be there. She had made her choices. I just made sure she faced the reality of them. She asked me to meet just to talk. I declined. That's when the tone of her messages changed. She began to reminisce. She sent photos of our trips, our first anniversary, our dog that died 2 years ago. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't feel anything, but because I finally understood something important. She missed the version of me that cared about her. That version was gone. She had betrayed him, and the man who remained had no space left for her. What she didn't know was that I had started seeing someone, not romantically, not yet, but someone who worked with one of the companies I was consulting for. Her name was Alina, too, oddly enough. We started talking over coffee breaks. She was quiet, thoughtful, didn't try to impress anyone. She reminded me of what peace used to feel like. But I didn't rush into anything. I was still in recovery, and I owed it to myself not to carry my past wounds into someone else's future. Then, one evening, I received an email that I never expected. From Bilal. The subject line, "We need to talk." I opened it. He wrote a short, clumsy paragraph about how things had gotten out of control. He said Alina had been manipulative, that she led him on, that he didn't mean to hurt anyone. He asked if we could clear the air like men. I didn't reply. There was nothing to clear. He was a chapter I had already closed. That week, Alina sent her final message. She said she was sorry, that she had made the biggest mistake of her life, that I was the best thing that ever happened to her. I didn't delete the message. I kept it as a reminder, not of her, but of who I had become. I was no longer the man who begged for her attention. I was the man who chose his peace over chaos, who chose truth over illusion, and I wasn't done just yet. It had been nearly 6 months since Alina moved out of the house we once shared. 6 months since I stopped asking why and started focusing on what now. The dust had settled, the calls had stopped, the messages dried up. I had achieved what I set out to do, not just exposing the betrayal, but stripping away every comfort her deception once leaned on. But revenge, as satisfying as it might seem in the beginning, isn't a sustainable emotion. It's a storm that clears the sky but leaves behind a strange quiet. After the drama ends, you're left with your own reflection. I had spent weeks, months even, watching her world slowly collapse, but now I had to decide what to build in its place. For me. Around that time, Alina, the woman I had gotten to know over coffee chats and quiet conversations, invited me to a networking dinner. She wasn't pushy or flirtatious, just kind, thoughtful. Her life was simple but grounded. The way she handled pressure reminded me of the person I had been before the betrayal. I went to the dinner out of courtesy, but I left with something more. A spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, I could trust again. Still, I was careful. I didn't want to fall into another illusion. I spent more time working on myself than trying to start something new. I began therapy, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand how I missed so many red flags. The sessions helped. They gave me clarity, taught me to separate my worth from what happened to me. And while I moved forward, so did the legal process. The divorce was finalized. I kept the house, my company, and everything I had worked for. Alina didn't contest it. She didn't have the leverage. Her lawyer tried to negotiate, but the evidence I had gathered, combined with her infidelity, meant she couldn't claim much. I gave her a small settlement, enough to avoid unnecessary court drama, but nowhere near what she had assumed she would get. She disappeared from the social circles we once frequented. Friends told me she had moved to another city, tried starting a small social media marketing firm. From what I heard, it hadn't gone well. Apparently, trust was hard to rebuild when people associate your name with deception. I never celebrated her downfall publicly. I never spoke ill of her to anyone who asked. When people tried to get gossip out of me, I simply said, "It didn't work out." That was enough. The people who mattered knew the truth. The rest didn't need to. One evening, about a year after everything had unfolded, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a letter. It was from Alina. She wrote about how lost she felt, how she had thought she was chasing excitement but ended up running from stability. She said Bilal had left her when things got difficult, that he blamed her for ruining his life and never looked back. She wrote that some nights she lay awake wondering if I would ever forgive her. Not to come back, but just so she could breathe easier, knowing she hadn't completely destroyed the one good thing in her life. I read the letter twice, and then I burned it. Forgiveness isn't something you send in a reply, it's something you earn. And she never tried. Her apologies came only after the world stopped clapping for her. When the man she left me for abandoned her and the walls she built with lies came crumbling down, then suddenly I was worth remembering. But I had no use for ashes. What surprised me, though, was how I didn't feel the rage I once had. I didn't even feel the satisfaction of her regrets. I felt nothing. And that's when I realized I had truly moved on. Lena and I eventually became close. Slowly, carefully. She never tried to fix me, she just listened, supported, encouraged. We weren't in love at first. It was something quieter, respect, trust, safety. Over time, it grew into something real, something earned. I took her to the same hilltop where I had once proposed to Alina, not to overwrite a memory, but to reclaim it. I told her my story, all of it, and she didn't pity me. She just held my hand and said, "You're here now. That's all that matters." And she was right. I've learned a few things through all of this. That betrayal doesn't define you. That silence is often louder than revenge. That sometimes the best way to get even isn't by hurting the person who broke you, but by healing yourself so completely that their memory no longer holds power over you. Alina may have shattered my heart, but she didn't destroy me. She just cleared the path for me to rebuild. Stronger, wiser, unshakable. And in that, I found my real revenge. Peace. The kind of peace no liar can steal again.